Today, we are doing a close read with the Lotus Eaters. So, for the assignment for Monday, you were supposed to read the Lotus Eaters, and then you also had kind of like a summary to make sure that you understood it. And then for today, we're just focusing on doing a close read. So, for this activity, it's just like what we did for the when I was Puerto Rican, and we're going to look for these same four things when we annotate: names, numbers, vocabulary, and figurative language. But we're also going to generate questions for this activity. So by the time we finish reading, I want you to have at least two questions that you've come up with, and you're going to put your questions on that last slide. So I will model to you with this first few lines. So we're going to look at lines 70 through 74. And then I've already put the things that I would have annotated as I read. So it says the Lotus Eaters. Now Zeus, the Lord of Cloud, roused in the north a storm against the ships, and driving bells of squall moved down like night on land and sea. The bows went plunging at the gust, sails cracked and lashed out strips in the big wind. So just from those lines, as I was reading, I would reread it and I would go kind of a little bit slower just so I can annotate those things. So the first time you read to kind of like understand what's going on. And it looks like Zeus is basically coming over the sea. So Zeus, I'm putting the name here because I noticed that that was a name. So that's why I have Zeus here. And then it says King of Gods. Now, the reason why I'm putting King of Gods is because I was given that information on the previous slide where we looked at that character list, King of Gods. But also in the text, it tells us the Lord of Cloud. So you could put either one of those, but we know for sure that he is very important. He is some type of God, right? And then the next word that I saw was rouse. Now that's a vocabulary word. And the reason why I call it a vocabulary word is because that might be a word that I'm not very familiar with. So I would write roused here and I would look that word up. So I would leave my PowerPoint and then I would just open a tab and Google or use a dictionary and find out the definition of that word. Now, when I'm doing that, I'm going to get 2 or 3 different definitions, but I want to use the one that makes the most sense for this sentence. So I'm using awaken because when I reread this, I could replace that. I could say, now Zeus, the Lord of Cloud, awaken in the north a storm against the ships. Now, if you look in the dictionary, the word rouse, they give you bring out of sleep or awaken and cause to feel angry or excited. If I had to choose between one of those definitions that make the most sense, I would choose the first one. So that's how I chose that one because I would replace it in the sentence to make sure it makes sense. And then I would do the same thing when I look at the third line. I get to another word that I'm not familiar with, squall. So I would put it here. And then the definition that I felt made the most sense, a sudden violent gust of wind or localized storm. So we can tell that they're going through a storm over the sea right now. So as I kept reading, I noticed that I saw some figurative language and it's right here in that same phrase where it says driving veils of squall move down like night on land and sea. And I know that that's a simile because they're comparing how the veils were driving to night on land and sea. So they're comparing two things using the word light. And they're just basically trying to show how hard the wind was blowing. Okay. So just from those few lines, I was able to get all of this information. When you do it on your own, because you're only going to do the rest of the paragraph plus the duration of the story. So you have a few more paragraphs left, and then you have that last page, and then you're finished with that portion. So you're going to look for all of that information. Just don't forget to come up with 2 questions that you may have about the story as you read, and you're going to put that on your last page. Okay. If you have any questions, just make sure that you email me or message me on Schoology.